Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
Dumelang Molweni Sanbonani, hello from Johannesburg, South Africa. My name is Bakang Tepamwete and I'm the Corporate Partnerships Manager at Plug and Play South Africa. On behalf of Plug and Play Global Sustainability, as well as our esteemed partners, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, I'd love to take this opportunity to welcome you to the very first Expo of the End Plastic Waste Innovation Platform. Over the past 3 months, we've had the enormous privilege to partner alongside the Alliance and teams from BASF, Dow, Total Energies, and Sasol, as well as various experts, to launch and execute an accelerator program through which our first 11 batch startups who are tackling the plastic waste issue in 8 countries from across the continent underwent. This expo serves as a celebration of these startups and an opportunity to spotlight their innovations whilst also learning about emergent trends within the African plastics value chain. But now, without me giving too much away of what's coming up next, please help me welcome my colleague and the Director of Plug and Play Global Sustainability, Matt Claxton, for a note from Plug and Play, as well as an introduction to our partnership with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Claxton. I'm the Global Director of Sustainability at Plug and Play, and welcome to the Plug and Play and Alliance to End Plastic Waste Johannesburg Expo. We're very excited for you to join us for this very special event as we celebrate the graduation of our first batch of startups from our Africa Alliance to End Plastic Waste Hub. Now, before we get into today's events, I just want to give you a brief overview about Plug and Play, our history with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, and how we got here today. So for those of you who do not know, Plug and Play's journey really starts here in our Lucky building, where our CEO was originally just renting office space to some pretty interesting startups while he was running his Persian rug store on the bottom floor. Some of those exciting startups that come through his door, ones such as PayPal, Google, Logitech, and Dropbox. And not only did he get to know them, but he actually ended up investing in them. And and it's easy to say it worked out incredibly well for him. Fast forward to today, Plug and Play has still had that rich tradition of investing in early stage startups, but we're doing much more than that now. So we've continued by expanding into now corporate innovation, where we work with over 500 organizations around the world. And we run accelerator programs around different themes in different industries all around the world. And that's actually what you're seeing today with our relationship with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. Now, we haven't slowed down on the VC side. We do about 200 investments per year. And I'm very excited to say in 2021, we had a really strong year where we had 9 unicorns, bringing our total count to 27 unicorns and still growing. And we can't wait to see what 2022 has in store for us. And in addition to kind of working on new focus areas and new geographies, we've been expanding pretty quickly. So from our headquarters in Silicon Valley, we've now expanded to 40 different geographies all around the world, including this one, our first Africa hub in Johannesburg. And in addition to sustainability, we also have programs in animal health, ag, branded retail, media and ad, fintech, insurtech, energy, mobility, travel, real estate, new materials and packaging, food and beverage, insurtech, and healthcare. And please let us know if you're interested in learning more about any of these different focus areas. Now, Plug and Play's sustainability journey started actually just over 2 years ago when we launched our partnership with the Alliance to End Plastic Waste back in October 2019. And For those of you who do not know, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste is a global consortium of about 60 companies from all around the world that have pledged over the next 5 years on a mission to ending plastic waste in the environment. We've done a lot of great work with them over the last 2 years, and we can't wait to show you a little bit about what's been going on behind the scenes. And so the way that Plug and Play works with the Alliance is we've been running their global accelerator program for them. So Plug and Play has an army of ventures, analysts, and associates that actively source and scout startups from all around the world and all across these different industries into our ecosystem. Today, we have over 64,000 startups in our ecosystem, and that number is still growing every single day. And not only do we look at very early stage startups, but we also look at mid and late stage companies. We really want to bring all the right players to the table and really try to see how we can make an impact in the world and in all the different industries that we work across. And so a little bit how the program works is we do a call for applications and we do our own sourcing around the different focus areas that you're seeing on your screen. So we look at startups that are doing waste collection, waste sorting, processing of plastic waste, end use markets for plastic waste material, design of plastic to make it easier to recycle, financial incentives for bringing plastic waste back, river pollution prevention, and lastly, waste material exchange, which is where we connect waste collectors with the people who want to process that waste material and to use it as something of value good. Now, today we reviewed over 3,000 startups, and we break them down not only by these different focus areas, but also by geographies. So for all the different hubs that we have around the world, we break them, we create a top 50 list of startups. We pass them along to our panel members. Where you're seeing on your screen is an example of the Silicon Valley program. And our panel members will narrow down to a top 20, which participate in our selection day, and ultimately to a top 10 or 12. And those are the ones that go through our accelerator program, where we help them with pitch polishing, getting new customers, helping them refine their business model, going into new markets, and helping them raise capital. And so in 2020, when we first started working with the Alliance, we originally just did 3 hubs, one in Silicon Valley, one in Paris, and one in Singapore. Now, the program went so well that we decided to double down our efforts in this space and actually expanded into now Shanghai, Sao Paulo, and Johannesburg. Johannesburg is our 6th and newest hub, and we're excited to see a lot of the results that have been coming out of this program. And so when we talk about some of the early initial results, this is what we mean. So today we've accelerated 92 startups from all around the world, and we have 11 currently being accelerated, but actually after today, those 11 will be graduating. And that has led to at least 120 commercial pilots and POCs and at least $65 million capital raised by the startups as a result of this program. And these are just a handful of the public pilots and POCs that have been formed. And some that have been formed in this region include ones between Dow and Empower, where they're looking at collecting water sachets and processing and using them for something of value good. We've also created a global cleanup campaign between Literati and the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, and looked at some pretty exciting new partnerships, such as ones between Circular, Total Energies, Recycle Technologies, and Innovate UK, where they're doing a plastic waste traceability study and tracking plastic waste through the value chain, ultimately to get it to a chemical recycler. Now, these are just a handful of the public pilots and POCs that have been formed as a result of the Accelerator program. If you'd like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to myself or a member of our team. And we're more than happy to provide you more information about these and keep you up to date when others become public. Now, we haven't just been doing work in ending plastic waste in the environment, but we've also been really ramping up our efforts in sustainability and have launched new initiatives in carbon neutrality and in sustainable fashion. These are all to meet the increasing demands of more sustainable solutions in numerous different industries and in different parts of the world. And not only have we been creating these new initiatives, but we've also been working with more and more partners all around the world. And not only that, but we're also very much putting our money where our mouth is, and we've been heavily investing in sustainability-focused startups, and been very excited to see the 21 investments we've done to date in the last 2 years, and we can't wait to see which startups we've invested next. And if you'd like to learn more about our sustainability program and see some more of the details on the topics that I talked about, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're more than happy to send you our 2-year anniversary report. And with that, I'd like to say thank you again so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the event. Take care.
Thank you, Matt, for providing that context. A perfect segue for the next segment of the agenda, being a message from our partners without whom none of this would be possible. Please help me in welcoming on stage the Vice President of Projects at the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, Nicholas Kolesh.
Good morning. My name is Nicholas Kolesh, and I'm Vice President of Projects at the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. We are the global partner to the Plug and Play End Plastic Waste Innovation Platform, a global program spanning 5 continents. Since its inception in 2019, we've seen more than 3,000 startups assessed, with more than 80 participating in programs across our hubs in Silicon Valley, Paris, Singapore, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, and most recently now in Johannesburg. I'm delighted to share the stage today with the first batch of startups from this hub, featuring innovators and entrepreneurs ready to tackle the plastic waste challenge in Africa. These companies will have the opportunity to connect with the Alliance ecosystem of members and other stakeholders, enabling partnership, learning, and collaboration. With every round of the program, the number and diversity of solutions is growing. There are differing regional challenges as we strive for effective waste management, community engagement, and the creation of a plastic circular economy. In many cases, solutions grounded in or adapted to the local context will have the best chance of success. The Alliance has seen this with its projects underway in Africa, where we are funding the Asase Foundation in Ghana and Koliba Africa in the Ivory Coast. Both of these organizations have developed fit-for-purpose business models that leverage their local circumstances with demonstrated success in ending plastic waste in the environment. The Closing the Loop project in Accra has set up a system for collection and processing of plastic waste, empowering women to establish a viable local business. They've recognized that the success of their model is grounded in strong community engagement. Now into its second phase, they are working with local entrepreneurs to transform aggregated plastic waste streams into building products, increasing both the quantity and quality of plastic waste available. In Abidjan, Koliba Africa is implementing an end-to-end solution, establishing collection containers across the city, as well as partnering with Shell and Total for placement of plastic waste bins at service stations. Collected waste is sorted and baled, ready to be processed at their facility. With support from the Alliance, their new plant will process higher volumes of PET, as well as high-density polyethylene and rigid polypropylene. They will bring these materials into the circular economy, locally or for export, fulfilling the ever-increasing demand for post-consumer recycled plastics. The circular economy is a powerful guiding vision, striving to keep materials in use until they're fully exhausted. However, turning this into reality requires action throughout the life cycle of a material, and it's entrepreneurs and innovators who are going to make this happen. So we're excited to share with you today the first batch of ventures that have come through the End Plastic Waste Innovation Platform in Johannesburg, with solutions to address the plastic waste challenge in Africa. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but hearing about the impact the member companies of the Alliance are creating alongside African startups leaves me both invigorated and hopeful for a plastics-free African future. Thank you, Nicholas. And now, without much further ado, the moment I'm sure you have all been waiting for, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first batch startup panel, spotlighting founders whose innovations are making waves in the areas of plastic waste collection and traceability. This will be facilitated by my colleague and Africa Sustainability Program Manager, Bongo Santi. The floor is yours, Bongo.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Bongo Santi and I'm Program Manager at Plug and Play Sustainability. I'm so happy that you could join us today for the culmination of the inaugural batch in the End Plastic Waste Innovation Platform here at the Johannesburg Hub. As our previous speakers have highlighted, today's Expo will offer an opportunity for you to learn about our startups and their founders. You'll also gain a deep insight into the various plastic value chains and how these startup solutions are driving innovation in each sector. In this conversation, we'll be putting a spotlight on waste collection and traceability, and these are data and IT solutions. And I'm joined, of course, by 4 experts in this field who will have the opportunity to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their startups. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are. My name is Cuthbert Ayodeji Nikute. I am the CEO and founder of Dallas Systems. Dallas Systems helps waste operators in African cities manage operations and expenses. So we give them a SaaS product that allow them to easily manage the process of customer acquisition and onboarding, share that data with their collection team, and then also share that data with their field agents who go out and then at the end of the month or whenever they do it, collect payments. We also give them the ability to track expenses when you're running a waste management company or waste or plastic collection company. You have a lot of expenses and you have a lot of those expenses coming from everywhere. Make it easier to track those. We also track revenue. So we give them tools to see their expenses and their revenues together so they can better plan and better manage their cash flow. That's our focus. We started as a waste company myself. I was running a waste company in Guinea-Conakry for 5 years and just had numerous pain points, primarily around how do I manage all of the information that was existing in my company? How many customers do we have? How many customers are we collecting today? How many customers is my truck collecting? Where are my collection vehicles? What type of waste are we collecting? What else could we do with it? There's just a lot of information that waste operators have that's not easy to manage, given a lot of the technology and a lot of the capacity, the human capacity that exists. And so we made it easier. I made it easier for myself, and then I decided to turn that into a product that can make it easier for waste collection across Africa.
My name is Matthew Godemar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Kudoti. Kudoti is based in South Africa. We operate across South Africa and we're based in Johannesburg. So our focus is really looking at the problem of the circular economy and recycling through the lens of supply chains. And what we do is essentially we enable the circular economy by building out better and more efficient supply chains for waste materials. We do this through a digital platform that we've built that essentially serves to interconnect all the different stakeholders within the waste value chain. So we start from the source of the waste, we track data on waste generation, waste type, waste volume, and then we use this data to then interlink the different players within the value chain to create efficiencies and to better enable the flow of waste from its source to its endpoint. And obviously we have a focus on optimizing the endpoints for different types of materials through our platform by using the data that we collect. Really, the goal behind all of this is how can we actually maximize the value of the waste material, which we believe is what's going to drive further collection and further recycling behavior, whether it's from individuals or businesses and waste industry stakeholders. So that's Kudoti in a nutshell. We're currently operational in South Africa, also working in India with a couple of clients there.
My name is Martin Tumsime, and I'm the CEO and co-founder at YoWaste. YoWaste, we are a tech-enabled waste management company that offers waste collection, recycling solution, and smart city solutions to urban communities. Those can be households, commercial clients, governments, municipalities, all in urban communities. So the problem we're solving, of course, is a problem that is very eminent among urban communities, cities and municipalities. That's a problem of waste. Africa is urbanizing more rapidly, and as a result of that is the problem of waste. So what we're doing is we have a vision of actually building Africa's largest waste management company, and we believe that we shall do that through our solution. We offer a mobile app where we work with a network of over 30 plus waste management companies who offer waste management services on behalf of YoWaste. You can think of it like an Uber for waste management. At the moment, we're operating in Kampala, that's in Uganda, and in Entebbe, servicing over 1,000 plus households and commercial clients in these given communities, working with over 30 plus, network of waste collectors, and over 40 plus vendor network of recyclers. People take up the waste and recycle it. And we do close to 10.5 tons of solid municipal waste per day. That's collected across the regions and areas we are working in. Yeah, so that's your waste. We're leveraging technology and a location-based mobile app where people download it from Play Store, subscribe to our waste management service. Then we can connect them to our network, the waste collectors in that given community, or sometimes it can be our own trucks. So that's it for yours. Thank you.
So my name is Nonso Poron. I'm the founder and CEO of Sosoke, and we are based in Nigeria. At Sosoke, our goal is to enable millions of people to have access to quality healthcare, irrespective of their socioeconomic condition, which means they could have access to healthcare paying cash or donating their recyclables to redeem premium. The whole idea of Sosoke was built because we understand that less than 5% of Nigerian 200 million population have access to health insurance. A stronger reason of this is because lots of people live below poverty line. People consider insurance an expensive luxury. There's a huge problem of trust. People don't trust insurance. They believe it don't work. So most times we see lots of people relying out-of-pocket healthcare choices, which push them back into poverty. We see a significant number of women losing their lives from pregnancy and childbirth, no higher number of infant mortality. Again, huge waste is dropped around the cities because homes and people don't find it easy to recycle. They think recycling is just for the poorest of the poor. So as a company, we understand that both problems are huge and catastrophic. One problem is access to quality healthcare is a great problem. Another problem is that recycling, is creating a very huge environmental problem, which creates public health issues and affect the marine life. So as a company, we thought of how best we could use one of these problems to tackle the other problem. We created Sosoke as a low-cost micro-health insurance, which allow people to pay cash or donate their recyclables to have access to quality healthcare across over 1,000 hospitals spread across all states in Nigeria. The whole idea started because we saw a couple of children picking plastics to exchange with their mom, so their mom in return could give it to a local herb store in exchange for a couple of herbs. So we ran a pilot in late 2019, and we had about 96 people donating recyclables to have healthcare. By the end of 2020, we had over 1,600. Last year, which ended, we have over 4,800 people. And in 2022, we are more focusing on business, our business to government partnership, which means we'll partner with governments to exchange recyclables to ensure that more people in their state will have healthcare, which comes at near zero cost on government. Recently, we partnered with River State government in exchange for 18,000 tons of waste to provide insurance for over 75,000 people. That's helping government provide insurance worth over $1.6 million at zero cost to them. More people will have access to quality healthcare, and the environment is clean. So join us in this mission of providing healthcare for millions of people, irrespective of their socioeconomic condition. Thank you very much.
As I mentioned, today we're going to be focusing on the collection value chain, which, as some of our speakers have mentioned, is how waste gets gathered and transported to its end-of-life location. And we'll also be looking at traceability, which speaks to solutions that provide tracking and management systems for waste handling. These are really important value chains in the waste management system, because there are still a lot of challenges in Africa when it comes to waste management. So what are some of the challenges, and this is to everyone on the panel, that you are facing currently as operators and innovators?
So we service waste operators, right? Our network of customers span Guinea, Sierra Leone, Mali, and Nigeria. And what happens often is one of their biggest concerns tend to be around three things. One, waste transfer stations. Two, final discharge. And then three, funding to maintain and repair their equipment. When I was operating, those were my main three challenges as waste operators. The main challenges they have, if you have 100 customers, if you have 1,500 customers, you have 10,000 customers. The main challenge is where are you putting the waste, right? Because in a lot of cities and a lot of states, that is the core problem, is that the state's role in the value chain as a managing transfer stations and or setting up final depots or discharges, there oftentimes isn't anyone doing that. And so for our customers, their biggest friction, they understand, they have all of these friction points, and they have, anytime we're presenting to clients, we often get the product is important and valuable, and they get it. But right now they are spending time and money trying to fix a problem that they shouldn't have to fix, namely having to travel twice as far to find a place where they can discharge without a problem. This oftentimes tends to be where my customers have friction points in their operation, right? And so that impacts us because they're like, we understand that this product has a cost. We're okay paying it. But right now, the money I do have, I have to use to pay this additional cost just to run my business, which I shouldn't have to, right? You know, more often than not, it's as opposed to going 5 kilometers or 8 kilometers, they're going 15 to 20 kilometers. And that additional 10 kilometers is several dollars worth of gas a day.
I can add to Cuthbert's point as well, on one aspect in particular that we've seen, and we work, typically with what's called a buyback center in South Africa, or a collection point more broadly defined, where there's essentially trading of waste. That's one of the key actors that we work with, and we also then link those actors with recyclers, more traditionally defined, who then process the waste. And certainly a huge, I think, challenge currently is access to infrastructure. And that access to infrastructure actually varies in terms of what we're looking at here. And it can go from, even just having a pretty simple scale when you're a small buyback center in a small town, a scale to weigh the waste. And then from there, we're seeing that it's very challenging for a business to actually evolve and grow itself to go up in the value chain. So from a scale, what a business would need to go to the next layer in the value chain is a baling machine or a compacting machine. And then from there, typically you would see companies that have shredders and then pelletizers. The problem is that this is an industry that has such small margins, and that faces huge cash flow problems in the day-to-day trading of waste, that it's very, very hard for a company to actually invest in itself and upscale and upgrade itself to the next layer of the value chain. And Cuthbert mentioned financing or access to funds. And the reality that we've seen is that actually it's a sector where there aren't really any access to funds or financing mechanisms to date. Banks don't look at this industry, at least in South Africa, that I can speak for that. Really getting a loan in this space is very, very difficult. So that's something that we've seen. I think that's a gap in the market as well, because the whole problem behind that is that it actually is a profitable business and a profitable industry for a lot of people. The markets are there for buying the waste. And so the financials, the economics are pretty clear. It's just that the access to the funds in the first place is actually very difficult.
I'll follow up on Matteo. Sorry, guys, but very often that's a core. That lack of financing is critical, because on their month-to-month or like regular recurring, most of these businesses are making profit, right? The challenge comes in when you get dinged with, you've got to repair a truck, or you now have, for a month, you now have to go further, right? This eats into your profit and oftentimes swings either way, when a line of credit would solve that. Or, if you can find financing to build a larger solution, a more long-term solution, which oftentimes in most cities, you end up with, I know Martin mentioned there's a network of waste operators they work with in Kampala. In most cities, you have, by neighborhood, you have several waste operators, each of whom are doing a few hundred or a few thousand, right? And so a structural solution, a fixed asset, transfer stations and closer, hauling trucks are things that that benefit the entire community and not just a single company. And those are the kinds of services that they need. But that businesses need. However, the state lacks the capacity, and the private sector, the banking sector, is not willing to look at them as a group to support them financially, to bring the investment they need, and to have confidence they'll find their funding, they'll find return on investment.
Yeah, so what we have seen in Kampala is that, there are regulations, right? So waste management, as you know, highly affects, politics, who is elected to the parliament, who is the next president. Most people will depend on that because, hey, if you've not picked up our garbage in our community, what's your government actually offering to us? So there tends to be like a lot of prohibitive regulations. For example, here in Kampala, where it's hard for new players to actually form their own waste management companies, be able to navigate all the regulations, and be able to service these communities. Yet it's the same cities and municipalities still telling us, hey, we don't have enough capacity, but like regulations are not supporting any new players. Then the other one, we have seen capacity. Like when we started out, we thought that the biggest problem that was facing, why over 40% of waste is never collected is because, hey, maybe these waste collectors lack, better digital tools that can actually help them become more efficient. But along the journey, we realized that actually one of the number one problem is, most of these people lack capacity. Trucks are actually expensive. A truck is, $30K, right? You're working in a community, maybe that requires, let's say, 40 trucks. That's quite a lot of money for entrepreneurs to actually access. And like Cuthbert said, is also maintenance cost. I don't know, but I think this is like the biggest problem among the service providers we have worked with, and why they're not giving efficient services in their communities. Trucks breaking down, you have to spend. It causes kind of cash flow problems because you have stuff to pay, then the truck breaks down. You have customers. Like if you're a waste management company, you're looking at servicing, like 1,000 households in a week. In a day, your trucks are down. Those are, I would say, 1,000 calls. Hitting, hey, you guys, what's up? Why didn't you come and show up? Other things. There are quite also like a lot of other challenges on the side of municipalities. But I would say like those are some of the things like we have seen in our ecosystem, the waste management industry here.
Let me just quickly add something to that. I think here in Nigeria, we have favorable government policies, that encourage recycling. So long as you could come up with policies that, an idea that will ensure more people will recycle, government will give you every support that you need. But the biggest problem you have to face is financing those ideas. Take for example, initially when we started, an average user will require about 150 kilograms of waste to have insurance, which is quite big. Again, people want to recycle, but they don't want to walk long distances to go and recycle. You need to create something that is more convenient. I want to recycle, but I don't want to walk long distance. You have to create an enabling environment for me to recycle. So these are huge infrastructure problems, like Matu mentioned. So when you're able to fix those gaps, you have to create agency networks that can allow more people, to recycle at their own convenience at any time, anywhere, without having to stress themselves recycling. Because the problem is that recycling is seen, specific as something for the poorest of the poor, for those scavengers. You see the millions of middle-income class people that generate this waste, they don't get involved because they feel, how much can I make from this? But if you, create an enabling environment with infrastructures and put more awareness that, more values could be exchanged from recyclable, you see more people in the middle class getting involved in recyclable. So I think the big problem and the gap we need to face is fill up is the angle of financing and solutions that can create enabling environment and sustainability in terms of recycling.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting that you're all highlighting a blanket issue that is facing not just startups in the waste value chain, but a lot of African startups. Knowing that, how can we close these gaps? How can we tackle some of these challenges that we're looking at? What are some of the ideas or opportunities that you are seeing that can help us shape the waste management industry into what we'd like it to be, efficient and also producing high value for the economy?
All right, yeah, maybe I'll just give like 2 points on that. One, we realized that one of the reasons why the service providers we're working with weren't actually most times being efficient or delivering. Let's say someone subscribed for Monday and Tuesday, they're not coming and showing up, is lack of capacity. And like I said, I think one of the opportunity would be in asset financing, right? For waste management companies. I feel like that can actually be a game changer because the whole recycling process starts with collecting the waste from the communities.
In my mind, there are a couple of things. One, asset financing is important, but I also think there should be interesting, innovative mechanisms to fund the operators, right? I think financing so for example, I learned through Kudoti and Mathieu about recycle credits. I personally believe that waste operators are very critical to this system, right? Waste operators, apart from recyclers, because waste operators touch homes and businesses very oftentimes at least once a week, if not as many times as 6 days a week. But you're generally a household of service once or twice a week. I think if we can find a way to support waste operators, right, as they're running their operations already, bringing in more revenue for them, right? So they're already collecting plastic. They're already collecting all of these things. What they need is an off-taker for the products, right? Africa's waste is generally over 55-60% organic. That's a value that can be processed. They're recycling, their recyclables, the metals. There are enough things that can be extracted from Africa, from most cities, from the waste in most African cities, that it can be valuable if there's a system in place, right? And so honestly, I think investors, I think municipalities have to think about how do we understand that waste operators are decentralized collectors. They should then be some kind of structure in place that centralizes this waste stream and adds value, right? The reality is somebody needs to do that work. And for someone to do that work, someone has to finance that work, right? The necessity of a plastic producer financing in a few cities in Africa, models where you have entire value chains established, that we're talking a few $100,000, right? We're not talking 20, we're not talking tens of millions. We're talking a few $100,000, maybe a few million. But generally, that would give you an infrastructure that will collect and divert over 85% of waste, right? I'm working in Sierra Leone right now to do two very different things. To work with one company that's taking and processing organic waste, and also trying to create a process to collect plastic waste so that we can divert, again, like 80% of that waste. And then you're only left with that last 15-20% that has to go to landfill, right? And what I'm doing what we're working on in Sierra Leone is very much finding operators that are already doing this work and that are seeking help. And Dallas System comes in to support them. Dallas System comes in and supports them just by giving the database or the backbone, the operation system, so that we can track all of this information and these companies can manage all of their operations.
Yeah, I guess, what Nonzo, Martin, and Cuthbert mentioned already kind of touch a lot of the key points. But I think one thing, and this is particularly when we're thinking about even ourselves as startups in this space, what we are working towards. And something we like to do at Kudoti is to actually almost shift the narrative, in terms of what we're doing. I think when we put ourselves in that kind of recycling waste management space, we're almost closing ourselves off to what we're already doing. And this is something that we believe at Kudoti, is that we're not really in the waste management space. We're actually building the future of manufacturing, in the sense that we're enabling for future resources to come back into manufacturing and production cycles. And when you look at it that way, suddenly, I think when you're talking to a bank, talking to an investor, what we do turns out to be a lot more than what's perceived, I think. And I think that's true. The reality is that really we are building some of the foundations for future economic growth, where we're recapturing lost value in materials and products that have been used. So I think for us, that's, at Kudoti, I think that's a really interesting kind of perspective that we try and put forward, in terms of what we do, in terms of how we speak with external stakeholders, and also in terms of how we engage with our own partners and clients. And I think I'll just kind of add a second point to that, which is that this, building the future of manufacturing is something that we're doing, but that also involves a lot of external partners that need to move in a certain direction for that to actually be a reality. Ourselves at Kudoti, we work with a number of brands, and I think what we've seen is that brands play a key role in this, in that they need to unlock the potential for recycling to feed into manufacturing by adapting their own processes and how they work in making new products, so that recycled materials or reused materials can actually come back in and feed into those manufacturing cycles. And it's something that Cuthbert mentioned as well, which is, for all this to really come together, you need that off-taker, the endpoint. And so we need to build capacity in that off-taking part of the waste value chain, which is the manufacturers, the brands, and which involves a shift in mindset, but also certainly an injection of fund as well, as we mentioned.
I think your solutions and how you're really thinking around engaging the industry and growing the industry is great. I mean, how Matthew and Kudoti are working with brands that are outside of the periphery of understanding waste management and working with waste management is also quite an encouraging strategy. And how Martin is actually using the app and using the reports as well to make people see what kind of value they're creating. I think that's one of the most important things that we humans like is validation. So immediately when I see, for instance, that, hey, I've collected this much tonnage this month, and this is how this looks compared to other people in my city, that'll really encourage the uptake of recycling. And of course, the dedicated person from Dalo Systems who helps operators to really be able to integrate and work with the system is also important when you're just starting out. So these are really amazing approaches that you have, but I'm quite interested. 2022 has just started. We have a big year ahead of us. Of course, there are other things that are happening in the world that might or might not impact us, but tell us a little bit about what your startup's looking to achieve this year. What are some of the big milestones that you're looking at, and how can this community join you on that journey?
This year, we're looking at raising basically to support our expansion plans. We're looking at raising just in case anyone is interested in waste management and recycling, and how we impact what we're doing, in the plastic waste management ecosystem. I'll actually be happy to chat and reach out. We started around early this year. We're looking for 350K, basically to help support grow to reach over 10K households and set up plastic waste management facility for recycling in Kampala. And of course, we think the future is actually bright, for waste management. We think, more plastic can actually be recycled. More waste will not actually end up in the landfill or illegal dumps in our communities. But, eventually, as our slogan always goes, we look at, building zero waste communities, through technology, one seat at a time.
I can just go quickly. Similar to Yoes and Martin, we're also gearing up for fundraising this year. We're looking more towards the middle part of this year, 2022. It's for us, 2021 was a very interesting year, where we learned a lot about our business, about our clients, about our partners, and we got essentially, discovered a lot of the pieces and the fundamentals of our business, and managed to learn those in a way that we think we're really prepared for expansion in 2022. So we still have kind of this first half of the year where we're kind of fine-tuning a few more things, but really looking at fundraising towards the middle of this year. And for us, there's certainly a geographic component to it as well, where you see a lot of opportunities in different markets that really match very accurately the conditions that are needed for us to be successful. And so that's something we wanted to build on and leverage going towards the end of this year.
For us, we are hoping to raise some funds to enable us, carry out some of the pilots around the partnerships that have already closed. And we recently signed a franchise in Uganda. So we want to also look at how best we can be able to grow scale, not just in Nigeria, but across other African countries. Our goal is to raise more money to go into African biggest city, Lagos, where more people, over 20 million people are there. Waste collection is a very big problem. So we are hoping, to raise funding that can allow us to scale, implement most of the government partnerships where we already have. Our long-term goal before the end of the year is to reach at least 200,000 people exchanging waste in partnership with government. So we are looking at, importantly, how best we could raise funding. As well, what we are looking at again is how can we grow our agency network. Our goal is to ensure that recycling have to be within every 500 to 700 meters so that people can find where they could recycle. And importantly, you create financial inclusion for these people because they're also creating jobs for them. Already we have 17, but we're looking to raise it to 500 before the end of the year. So these are part of the things that we hope to do before the end of 2022.
Like everyone, we're trying to grow. We've, like Batio and Martin and also we've done a lot of learning over the past year. We've identified what go-to-market looks like. We identify what we need to onboard customers. And so our target for this year is to get to have about 80 clients on the platform, which are waste operators, recycling operators, serving approximately 100,000 households and businesses. And so if we can, our goal is to get that around, is to have all those clients and customers on the platform by Q3 of this year. We're looking to raise around between 350 to 500K to support the dev team and to support the team that we need so that we can not only hit that target, but then actually test out another idea that we're looking at, which is something we discussed in this call. We're looking at seeing if we can do a bit of a financing for waste operators to support their growth, their collection, right? So like give them the financial support to obtain the equipment they need, and then using our product, do the monitoring and also then the repayment around that. That's one small thing we're looking to test, but our focus is on how do we acquire this 80 plus waste operators and over 100,000 customers. And we already have a pretty clear path to that. We've had some partnerships that we're exploring in, again, Sierra Leone, and then continuing in Guinea and Mali and Nigeria. So we're pretty confident that we should be able to hit that target. Our goal is to raise the funding to then support the rapid expansion of the team we would need to really make that possible.
Fantastic. So it's so great to hear about your goals, and I really hope that you can achieve them. If anyone's joining us today for the Expo and you'd love to learn more about our founders and the startups, please head over to the Expo booth section, and also you can connect with them via the networking tab that's on the left hand of your screen. It was so great to have this conversation with you, gentlemen. I'm looking forward to seeing what great things come out from each of your companies in 2022. Thanks so much for joining us today, and looking forward to hearing more from you. Thanks a lot.
Incredibly insightful and inspiring. If you'd like us to connect you with any of our batch startups, please feel free to drop a note in the chat, or alternatively, visit their startup booths on the exhibition landing page. Now, coming up next, I present to you a crucial conversation between our corporate partners from Darwin Sasol and startup founders from Kudoti and Repattern, discussing how to leapfrog sustainability innovation through synergistic collaboration. I hope you're going to enjoy this next bit.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Chow. I'm Plug and Play's EMEA Director of Sustainability. And today we are talking about leapfrogging sustainability innovation. We have some amazing guests here, and so we're going to jump right in. We're going to do a quick round of introductions to kick us off. So I'm actually going to start with Kelly. and then go around the table. So Kelly, feel free to jump in.
Thanks, Nick. Kelly McGurk. I work for Sasol and am in the chemical business in the strategy and sustainability area.
Thanks, Kelly. Adjoa?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Adjoa Coleman, Africa Sustainability and Advocacy Manager for Dow's Packaging and Specialty Plastic Business, as well as the country manager for our office in Ghana.
Thanks, Adjoa. Jeff?
Hey guys, I'm Jeff, the founder of Repattern. We are aiming to build West Africa's first bottle-to-bottle recycling plant.
Thank you. And lastly, Matthew.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew de Godemar. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Kudoti, based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And we're a supply chain platform for the waste value chain.
Great. Thank you guys. Really, really excited to have you guys here today. So, clearly with less legacy systems, there's this opportunity to leapfrog or bypass these technologies. And that means in some ways, Africa can position themselves almost ahead of a lot of other countries that are kind of struggling to transition from old infrastructure. So, I think the big common example is leapfrogging phone technology to mobile phones instead of that land-based technology or infrastructure. So talking about sustainability here, in your guys' opinion, what are some of the ways that innovation between corporations and startups can help Africa leapfrog in sustainability? And maybe I'll pass it to Adjoa to kick us off, and then go from there.
Thank you so much, Nick. I think before we even get into how these collaborations can help Africa to leapfrog, it's important to understand that the answers to the problems that are within the region also exist in the region. And a lot of times what you see with these startups that come up is that they have the idea, but then there are certain barriers that prevent them from moving from that conception to piloting to actual scale. And so these collaborations with companies definitely bring different advantages to the startups to enable them reach that end goal. You take, for example, a company like Dow, which is a plastic raw material supplier. But globally, we're a huge material science company that has a lot of expertise in product development, especially when it comes to plastic and plastic packaging and plastic products. So as the circular economy comes to the forefront of everything we do as business, it really helps us as Dow to speak to the rest of the value chain. And startups for us, especially within the waste space, sit at that a few steps down within that value chain and help us to achieve those things that we can't do from not being on the ground in places like Africa. And so being able to communicate and share our expertise as Dow from the virgin raw material standpoint to incorporate the local knowledge or the local nuance that startups understand to reach a mutual end goal is really, I think, where the key is in being able to leapfrog.
Thanks, Adjoa. Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
I think one of the beautiful ways is that we can learn from all the mistakes that the big corporates have done. And we do not have to walk down the same path, but we can work with them. And if they're open enough to share what mistakes that they've made, we can actually build for the future. So it's a bit of a challenge because it takes a lot of reflection on a larger corporate's part as well to be honest with themselves, understand, okay, these are the mistakes that we've made. And if we would start all over again, we would not do this anymore. But if you have a partner that is that open and willing to share that information with you, you can actually build something from scratch like we're trying to do. We have a complete greenfield project. And we can basically go to the drawing board and design the plans for dreams with all the sustainability metrics in mind that we want to achieve. So in that sense, I think we have a beautiful opportunity in Africa or in any developing economy, really, that in collaboration with corporates, we can learn from all the experience that they've gained and really aim to present ourselves or to position ourselves for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Hear a lot of those same tones of like reflection that Adjoa had before as well. I think it's great.
Yeah, maybe just add something short there as well, where I think, definitely the learnings are super important, as Jeffrey mentioned, and that's something we've seen as well. And I think, then going even a step beyond and actually, trying to anticipating new ways of doing things. And I think for us, that's what's also most exciting in Africa, and I mean, in South Africa, particularly where we operate. There is that ability and there's opportunity to really test new things. And what's exciting is that, they're just not just new things for Africa, they're new things for the world as well. And the way that we see it is that actually Africa is probably one of the best places to really try out radical transformations that are needed to move forward, and then actually show the world how that can be done in other markets as well. So that's really, I think, really exciting for us. And obviously startups play a role there, where startups bring a lot of the innovation and new ideas, but the corporates also play a huge role there, and we are starting to see that happening as well, where where those two converge, there are essentially new models of working together that we can then, I think, export and show in other markets.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what Matthew and Jeff and Adwa have said. I also feel that the role of the corporates can play a big role in terms of helping startups to scale, and that lack of infrastructure, which is one of Africa's in terms of formal hard infrastructure, actually represents an opportunity to kind of not live with an obsolete system and to really leverage digital technology and more service-oriented business models, which I think are going to really contribute significantly towards sustainability in Africa going forward.
Yeah, I love how you guys talked about different roles that corporations and startups are playing, and Matthew, I loved what you're saying about showing the world what can actually be done, because a lot of this is new, cutting edge as well. And so, Kelly, I'm gonna pass this next one to you. What motivates you guys to work with startups, and why are these partnerships really important for Sasol?
I think we see sort of startups and entrepreneurial activity as actually crucial to solving some of the sustainability challenges, which are, very seldom able to be solved by a single stakeholder in a value chain. And I think what startups bring is an agility, which large corporations often struggle to achieve. They bring context-specific solutions, which are really grounded on problems on the ground. And I think that practical experience of solutions that fit the environment, and I see them as complementary very much to what the corporate skills and competency brings. And so I think those partnerships can hopefully bring out a bit of a win-win. And I think also, I think the diversity of businesses needs to grow substantially in Africa, and startups play such a vital role in terms of resilience in an economy. And I think that that's a huge contributing factor towards our sort of involvement with startups.
I couldn't agree more. And I love that mindset as well. I think that's really important to have. And Adwa, I know you already mentioned a little bit about why you guys are working with startups, but anything you want to add as well?
I think the key thing I'll add here is that the challenges of today's world definitely leads corporations into spaces that are out of their core business area, right? And so for us, when we venture into a space like that, we really look into the markets where we operate and where we sell to see who is doing something about this issue, or who knows or understands this issue. And those are the people that we look to talk to. And most often in Africa, because of the spirit of entrepreneurship, those companies are startups. And it's really exciting, I think, to go into different markets and see what startups are doing, how they are thinking about problems that are very different sometimes from how large corporations think. I think Kelly made a key point about agility. There's a lot that startups can do that large corporations that are hundreds of years old may not have as much flexibility to do, right? And so for me, partnerships that create pilots for things that I may not be able to do just as DAO or internally really, really excite me. And I think that's one of the key reasons why we go into them, to test models that we may otherwise not explore as DAO alone.
Great. And maybe I'm going to stick with you guys here before passing it back over to the startups for this next question. But what frameworks have you guys seen or have used that you have found really effective when establishing these collaborations, especially maybe for these newer technologies that can be leapfrog type of technologies?
Kelly, maybe I take a crack at this first, and then you can add on if there's maybe some other way that you partner as SASL. But from DAO's end, a framework that I've found very effective is, first of all, beginning with pilots that are grant funded, right? There's a lot less risk when you start that way, with putting a little grant funding to create a pilot with a startup. The process is very consultative. So I, lay the cards on the table. This is what we are looking to accomplish as DAO, understand what the startup's capabilities are, and work together to achieve that mutual end. And when those pilots start to reach an MVP, then it makes sense to consider something bigger like an equity investment or some other type of investment. But this is typically the type of framework that we have used, and it's proven quite effective. And also, once you test the pilot in one market and it works, it's very interesting to take it and then replicate in another market to see if it will be successful. Of course, considering the local context there as well. But this is essentially the framework that we've been using in the region, and it's proven quite successful.
Yeah, it's something that we see is really helpful too. Starting small is beautiful. Sorry, Kelly.
No, that's great. So I just wanted to add that we've also, I think, got a lot of value from industry association and participations in let's say almost consortia that have grown around an organic problem. And I think that kind of collaboration between other large corporates, startups, and not-for-profits, etc. It takes time to build, it takes time to generate the alignment, but it also strengthens, I think, the resolve and hopefully the success of the venture at the end of the day.
That's really interesting. I mean, I think sustainability, right? Yeah, it's systems level issue, right? So bringing those people together, I think, is really important. That's amazing that you guys are seeing that and doing that. I think that's lovely. So I'm going to pass it over to the startups for their perspective. So for the startups that are in the audience, what are some of the frameworks that you guys have seen that have worked for you guys when establishing connections and collaborations with larger corporations?
Yeah, maybe I can start on that. So I think definitely on top of what was mentioned already, certainly grants are kind of big boost, or I'd say, some kind of initial, pilot agreement. And in that agreement, what we've seen really being incredibly kind of helpful and powerful for a startup like ourselves, who are quite small and still, working our way to scale, is really bringing a lot of clarity to the expected outcomes, either of what we're trying to prove, or what we're trying to learn and improve in the process. So, as much clarity as can be brought to the table up front, that I think alleviates the friction in a number of ways. Namely that, first of all, as a startup, it gives us a lot of, I think, validation and certainty, or more certainty that something is actually going to come out of this discussion, rather than this being kind of a brainstorm where, we're not really sure if this is something serious and if actually, some kind of work will come out of the discussion. So, the clarity on the outcomes, on also, what situation we're coming into to try and, bring value. Those are things that I think we've seen really facilitate the discussion and help us go back to, to our teams and say, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. How feasible is this? And then also provide better clarity to the corporates in terms of how feasible and what we can actually look to deliver in that process.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great framework.
Yeah, I'd just like to touch on what Mathieu just said. I think clarity around the problem that should be solved and what an ideal outcome could look like was what worked best in our case. And the interesting thing was to get us, maybe to add another thing is proximity maybe to the corporate. So we were almost treated like a department within the corporate, which gave us access to all the internal resources that they had. So we felt very much part of the wider group. And in doing so, that allowed us to challenge them and them to challenge us. And this interesting dynamic really led to fast tracking a lot of growth that might have taken us years if we tried to kind of stick it out ourselves. So clarity around the issue that should be solved, the outcome, and the proximity to within the corporate to have access to resources was really, really, really essential for us to get us to where we are today.
That's great. And kind of what I see from that conversation is, right, the startups have that agility and that technology, and then the corporations have that experience and that scale. So I think, mirroring the two, I think is really important. So we're going to move on to the last question. This is for all of you guys to answer. So from your perspective, what does the future of sustainability innovation look like in Africa? So we'll go around the table. Maybe we'll start from Kelly, who also started us off, and then we'll go from there.
I see it as potentially populated. I think digital is going to play a huge role. I think that there's going to be hopefully a lot of really cool social enterprises that manifest in Africa, and partnerships between corporates and startups that kind of foster value chains that have a totally different look and feel to what we know today. And just participating in this process has made me really excited about the talent that's available and the solutions that people have come up with in the context of problems they've identified and managed to scale successfully, to particular points. So yeah, I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, though that one word talent for us is also super exciting. The amount of talent coming into that space is really great. Adjoa?
I think Kelly hit the nail on the head there around the word social, right? So one of the learnings from working in this region over time in the sustainability space is that socioeconomic issues cannot be decoupled from sustainability or environmental issues, right? So I think the future of sustainability in this continent is a means to create a sustainable Africa for the future, but to use those solutions to create jobs, to create better livelihoods. And I think that those cannot be decoupled from each other. And we see this even with the waste space, right? With the predominance of waste pickers and waste collectors. And so the future for me is a joint growth of a better socioeconomic status combined with sustainability. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that word social is super important for us as well. And I would just add a layer from our perspective is that, for both sustainability and innovation, we as a technology platform, we see the future in Africa actually being distributed in the sense that we mentioned as well, the lack of infrastructure and hard kind of assets that are in place in Africa. So we both have to resolve that and overcome it at the same time. And that's actually a huge opportunity to go into a distributed model for innovation, sustainability, and ultimately growth, where there are a number of assets already in place that we need to maximize, both infrastructure, also we mentioned people. There are incredibly talented people in Africa, hardworking people who actually can bring new ideas, new ways of doing things, and their efforts to these problems. So we see it from the technology side of actually how can we reach as many of those people as possible at the lowest cost possible, and then bring that all into a coherent system that can actually get to the outcomes that we're looking to do. And I think also applying that to the infrastructure as well, where we do need to grow the infrastructure on the continent, but we also need to do it at the lowest cost possible so that we can actually do it fast enough and at a big enough scale that it makes a difference. So I think that's that word social and distributed is really kind of where we're seeing the future on the continent.
Great, thanks, Matthew. Jeff, take us home.
Yeah, I think my ideal future would be if corporates can develop a bit more risk appetite towards the continent of Africa, to understand that it's not just a single country, but a very, very diverse continent, and that risk appetite is rewarded with not only a financial impact, but also a social one, like Ajwa and Mathieu have touched on, and also an ecological one, and actually one that balances the three and not have one detract from each other. So I think that would be my ideal future for sustainability in Africa.
Well, I think based off of you guys being here today and the thoughts, the mindset you guys have, the future looks bright. Yeah, I think I just want to say thank you guys for sharing your thoughts and insight, but also for the work you guys have been doing. And I just want to say keep on pushing on, and I think the future will be more sustainable. So thanks again, and thanks again for joining. Until next time.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. My favorite takeaway was that all of us in the audience should heed the call to become agents and advocates for increased corporate and startup collaboration as an effective means of bolstering sustainability innovation on the continent. But now, yet again, we have the privilege of another startup spotlight, this time focusing on our founders who are dominating the areas of waste education and waste processing. Bongo, back to your capable hands.
Thanks everyone for joining us. And I'm very excited for the next panel because we have another 4 experts from the plastic value chain who are going to be speaking to us about their startup solutions, but also highlighting some of the trends of what's happening in Africa. This conversation is looking at the education, marketplace, and processing categories. And these are platforms that are enabling individuals to understand the plastic value chain and its environmental impact, with an aim to provide solutions that can help them live a more sustainable life. These are also actors that are enabling recycling and reuse by making connections that are beneficial to both sides of the value chain, and also operators who are recovering and producing value from plastic through physical transformation. Remember, if you happen to miss any of the segments, you can watch all the recordings of the panels on the replay tab that's on the left side of your screen. And now I'd like to provide the opportunity for our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a bit about their startups. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us today. It's so great to have you as part of this batch, but also to learn more about your work.
All right, thank you very much, Bongo. Yeah, my name is Abdul Rahim Shaibu Isa, and I'm the Executive Director for Recycle Lab Ghana, based in Ghana, actually. So basically, Recycle Lab Ghana is a non-profit that works to empower young Ghanaians to develop sustainable solutions to the plastic waste problems that we face in the country. And we do this basically in 3 phases, where we have young people going through educational activities and also leveraging the community to support community actors to recycle their plastic waste. And then also we also do schools activities where we work with schools, also young people, to actually segregate their plastic waste, and also develop robust plastic waste management systems in the schools. And then finally, we target the end of the value chain, which is on the entrepreneurial side, where we work with young people to innovate and develop various products and solutions that can actually be used in terms of as a way of recycling the plastic waste, and then also can be as a substitute to recycling, and also a way of moving plastic waste out of the system as well.
Hi guys, my name is Jeff. I am the founder of Repattern. We're based in Ghana, West Africa, where we're trying to establish the region's first bottle-to-bottle recycling plant. We differentiate ourselves in Western models in so far that we leverage the informal collection sector. So the majority of our supply comes from informal workers who roam the roads of Accra and beyond to collect bottles, deliver them to us, where for now, we aggregate the material, process it and export it to Europe, but the goal would be to add maximum value in Ghana for the region so that the Coca-Cola bottles that can be collected in Ghana can be recycled back into resin to be supplied to the Coca-Colas of this world.
Let me go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel, the CEO and founder of Taka Taka Solutions. We are an integrated waste management and recycling company based out of Nairobi, Kenya. So what that means is that we are active across the whole value chain. So we collect waste from waste producers, commercial, residential, industrial. Then we operate sorting sites, which are also called material recovery facilities, where we sort the waste coming from the customers into multiple waste fractions. Then for the organic waste, we're active in composting. So we produce compost organic fertilizer. Then we also have an incinerator for hazardous waste. And with regards to plastic, which is one of our main focus areas, is that we operate currently 2 plastic recycling plants, one for all kinds of plastic containers, including single-use light kind of yogurt cups and other thermoformed plastics, and we process them into flakes or pellets. And then we also have a plant that we just launched at the end of last year for flexible packaging, where we wash the flexible packaging and then also convert that into pellets. And then our sourcing happens both from our own sorting sites, but we also, similar to Repattern, we source from the informal sector as well. So we operate a couple of buyback centers across Kenya. At the moment, there are 4 of them where we source from waste pickers at dump sites. So we source plastics, we pre-sort it, we compact it, and then take it back to our recycling plant for processing. Yeah, so that's as a quick summary. So excited for the panel.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Guilain. I'm French and founder and managing director of Cesar Recycling, a company based in Accra, Ghana, that I have created 2 years ago after returning from Madagascar where I was previously working in recycling. So we are acting as an aggregator. So we are collecting the plastics, mostly the PET, the LD, also some PPHD and beverage cans, through a network of collection center buyback that we are implementing into the communities, and also through recycling program developed specifically with churches, mosques, and schools across the city. So the users can swap the kg of plastics into points, stored into digital wallet, and then be redeemed in various reward, mostly cash and mobile money. And on the other side, we are processing the plastics into bales of flakes sold as raw material to supply largest recycling industry in Ghana or abroad. We are still young, collecting 20 tons a month, but we are now entering actively into scaling up phase with the goal to reach 100 tons per month.
Let's jump right in because there was something that came out from the previous panel which kind of spoke to some of the stats we talked about. I mean, we highlighted that when you look at the Africa landscape and how municipal solid waste is handled, only around 55% of that is actually diverted. And some of the things that came out as challenges that caused that are infrastructure gaps, skills development gaps, but also funding gaps for operators who are either trying to develop new systems. And I want to start with you, Dan, because Daniel, you recently launched a new center. So what have been some of the challenges that you faced to establish yourself not only as integrated recycling in Kenya, but also be able to grow as your operations go forward?
Yeah, thanks for the great question, Bongo. So I think when we look at sourcing plastics, so I'm going to focus now a bit more mostly about plastics. I think there's, we always look at the 2 sourcing channels, and there's kind of the sourcing challenge of working with the informal sector, which is important. And I think it's the main sourcing channel for almost anywhere across Africa. But ultimately, as a company, we don't think that's where kind of waste management should head towards, because it's a very inefficient system. If you first collect waste, then it's dumped into the environment, then from various scattered dump sites, some of them official, some of them unofficial, you're trying to recover now valuable plastics, then you have multiple problems. One, it's fairly expensive. Two, you have high contamination rates. Three, some of these dump sites are so small that the logistics don't make sense. So you're kind of trying the best possible in a broken system, right? And I think that's kind of what our buyback centers do. And I think that's understandably what a lot of players across Africa do, because there is a system that doesn't really work. And now coming to the second part, so what would be the system that would be better? And I think that is a system where waste initially goes to material recovery or sorting sites, which have, can operate more efficiently. The waste is recovered earlier, and ideally that's even combined with source separation. I think I think is the case in Cape Town. So if you have, source separation, early recovery, you have much cleaner materials. You have much more cheaply sourced materials, so the cost to the recyclers are lower, and your recovery rate, so the percentage of plastics that you can get out of a sorting site as opposed to a dump site, is much higher. So just to put that into perspective, when Kenya has a plastic recycling rate of 7%, which is really low, but in the region is already one of the higher ones. Versus when we sort out plastics at our material recovery facilities, we are able to sort out 90% of the plastics for recycling. So what I'm saying is that I think the sector ultimately needs to move towards material recovery facilities if you want to kind of work towards higher recovery rates. There are obviously other factors, are there recyclers on the back end of it? But once you have enough available raw materials in a good quality, then it's also easier for people to come in and invest and say, if there's X quantities of plastics of this type available every month in a guaranteed clean way of a certain quality, then it's much easier to put up a recycling plan. Versus today, and I think if I'm looking at everyone here, the system is so not working that everyone is forced to kind of vertically integrate or work with a lot of informal players just to get access to enough volumes, because otherwise how do you get into recycling if you don't have the raw material?
Jeff, do you have the sort of like the same experience when looking at your operations in Ghana?
Yeah, so many points that Daniel touched on that are so valid. It's just insane how overly complicated we make things for ourselves. But I guess coming from, or looking at plastic specifically, I guess it comes from us almost being overwhelmed with the material in Ghana. So growing up, when I went to Ghana to visit, I was born and raised in Switzerland, but visiting Ghana, I didn't see plastic around that much. And then all of a sudden it's everywhere. And you go to a mall and you get your carrots, and the carrots are wrapped in a bag. Your peppers are wrapped in a bag, your yams wrapped in a bag, and that is wrapped in 1 or 2 bags just to make sure that the other bags don't break. And then you get home with insane amounts of plastic bags that you really don't know where to send to. So I believe one big steps, if I could start over, I probably would not focus on plastics in Ghana, but I'd focus more on the organic side of things, because I feel like if you can remove the organic fraction and deal with that separately at a household level, ideally, and only get the non-organics, so you're going to have the plastics, papers, the aluminum, metals, whatever, and you treat that separately, it's going to make recycling and the processing of the materials a lot simpler. So in a way, it's good and bad. Like, it's bad to the situation that we're in now because it seems like such a mess, but I feel like it's not hopeless. So we have ways in which we could address the situation that are not going to cost millions and millions to implement. But I think a big part of it is going to be the reshaping of people's opinions on waste, and to educate them on how to treat it in the appropriate way so that recyclers can actually generate value from that material.
Yeah, and I think a big thing that I'm getting from both yourself and Daniel's comments is something that's very important in separation at source to prevent that contamination so that you can get a high value product after you process it. So I'm quite curious then, Gilan and Abdul Rahim, in your operations, working closer with communities, working closer with households, what have been some of the both challenges and opportunities to firstly drive that behavior change so that people take a look at their waste more closely and separate it before sending it out maybe to a landfill or whichever aggregator they send it to? What have been some of the strategies that you've employed to ensure that you're getting the most out of those relationships?
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about the communities, I think one of the biggest challenge with respect to source segregation, as we already talked about as one of the solutions to get there, is basically the fact that there seems to be little value on the plastic waste itself, or the community sees little value on the plastic waste, or possibly no value. So one of the things that, and that's actually a challenge, and it also translates into an opportunity. One of the things that we look at doing, working with the communities in the schools, is to make sure that there is a high value, or there's a value on that. And I mean, all the recyclers here are actually contributing to actually creating that value. And that is where I believe that for communities to actually start looking at segregating and all those things, or at source, then they need to really see the value. And that's one of the things that we do in our community waste initiatives, as well as other schools initiatives, where we try to leverage corporate partners to actually provide incentives, not only on cash basis, but also with respect to vouchers and other materials, material incentives that could actually push individual residents and household, and not only informal waste pickers, but also people living in their own homes, to actually start segregating their waste to exchange for some few incentives as well. So this model has actually been really working well. And then also, of course, with respect to the buyback centers that the likes of Lilian and others are developing, it also allows people to exchange their plastics for incentives, which is money, and that actually pushes people to actually segregate because they see value in the plastic waste.
So we are thinking also that the incentive is very key if we want to develop segregation at source. But we face some challenge because most of the people are preferring cash instead of products or other rewards. So we have to adapt to each community the type of rewards we are proposing. And you were mentioning the education, which is very key. And for this, it's also very challenging because home to home campaign is too much. It takes too much time. So we are trying to identify the good level and to work with civil society to make this awareness campaign. And one good player, we are thinking from our side, one good player can be the religious bodies, because they are rooted into the communities, and they are very important opinion leaders, and also because environmental issues are in harmony with the message of faith, and they are implemented everywhere in the urban area. You have thousands of people that are coming here every week. So it can be, from our side, a good opportunity to work more with them because they are powerful agent of change.
Yeah, it's always good to anchor your solution on people who are trusted within the community, especially for behavior change initiatives. But now I want to kind of throw out a question to everyone. What are some of the trends that could be an opportunity for Africa to get that number up from 55% to maybe 90%, similar to what Taka Taka is doing at their level? What are some of the mechanisms we can put in place, for instance, to ensure that Repattern doesn't have to sell off their recycling to European markets, and it can create some sort of value in the continent? And this is an open question for everyone on the panel.
It's a great question. I think the most obvious one to me is that if you look at the recycling market globally, it becomes apparent to me, just from what I see in Ghana, that the world is pushing towards Africa to get resources, because whatever market that they're in, they're not getting enough. So we have people from Asia getting in touch with us, Europeans from literally the entire continent of Europe getting in touch with us, people from South America reaching out to us. Everyone is thirsting for this material. So it clearly shows the demand for the product. However, investors oftentimes fear the black box Africa. And they think that it might make more sense to build a recycling plant in Europe that is fed by African feedstock, rather than building a plant in Africa that can produce with the same machines, very likely the same quality of feedstock that then can be sold within the region and abroad as well. So I think, to me, the main key is from a business case perspective, that people should really familiarize themselves and really see the trend that we're seeing globally to increase recycling rates all over the world. Some are mandated by law, some aren't, and take that as an opportunity to not just extend the capacity in Europe, but also really look at into the continent and see what can be done locally. So we're trying to work with European companies that are inching their way into Africa and slowly but surely gaining an understanding for what's possible and what isn't. And we hope that with that and with those kinds of partnerships, we can kind of lead the way to show other entrepreneurs and other investors and other entities what is possible on the continent.
Just to add to that as well, I mean, taking it from also the business point of view, I see research, design, and innovation as one of the key aspects that could also actually allow us to be able to recycle and valorize most of the plastic waste that we produce here in Africa. And one of the things that I think could be done is to invest more in innovations of valorization techniques in the plastic sector or in the plastic waste sector. I speak as someone who has actually run various startup weekends for people to develop ideas that can transform plastic waste into something valuable. And I'm usually surprised by the number of wonderful ideas that actually come up. But then the problem is these ideas come up and there's no technical facilities or other facilities that can even help young people actually go through a testing and prototyping phase. So usually sometimes these ideas are dropped off at some point in time. Now, one of the things that we are doing right now is currently we're building an innovation center that actually looks at the research, design, and innovation into various ways that plastics could be valorized. So we could have at some point various different business solutions that actually come out from plastic waste, and that in that sense would actually expand the usage and the consumption, also absorb a lot of plastic waste that we actually produce in the country, and then it avoids that aspect of us exporting the plastic waste outside, thereby also creating more jobs in the country.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that. And I think also just especially to add on the points from Jeffrey, actually, I would even go a step further. So while I was earlier fairly negative that a lot of waste is dumped and it would be more efficient to sort it, and that is true, I think there's one significant advantage that we have across Africa that people in Europe or the US or other high labor markets don't have. Like, we can afford to do manual sorting to a very high quality. And that really impacts the quality of the plastic we can produce. And while at Taka Taka, we actually try to and want to exclusively sell within Kenya or within the areas we operate in, because we don't think from environmental and other reasons, ideally plastic should stay within the same environment. But we've heard from exporting and demand and, samples we've sent out that like the quality of African plastic, obviously in combination with the right technology, can be extremely high because there is that labor cost advantage and the ability to really get to a high quality of sorted feedstock into a recycling plant. So then the question is, what is needed to, coming back to Bongo's question, is, we need to kind of combine this unique selling proposition of the market we operate in, that despite the broken collection chain, we can collect and sort a very high quality of feedstock with the right machines, and then move away from pre-processing, be that baling, be that shredding, to then export, to really bring the whole value chain in country or within, the area of operations, geographically speaking, and by which I mean is go all the way from, high quality washing, shredding to pelletizing, because once you have a high quality pellet, there's lots of demand in the local market, and then it becomes a truly circular solution. So I think that's something I strongly advocate for, that as much of the value creation and the whole chain of value creation should stay in country or on the continent, because then there's actually no need to export to Europe. And I think the other beautiful thing about it is many African countries have fairly expensive import costs. There's taxes and other things. So as a result, virgin plastic is rather expensive. So actually, if you have the right quality, the price paid locally for good pallets is really competitive. And therefore, there's actually not a need in, once that infrastructure and value chain is built up, to look at exports.
Yeah, true. So you made all a very good answer. And maybe to complete from what I see, one of the most promising things we need to support our activity is the development of the legislation. And I'm happy to see that all across Africa, the IPR scheme is developing, so at various levels. So South Africa is open, has launched recently the IPR scheme, the mandatory one. But we are seeing also in various countries that it's on the table. And in Ghana, they recently announced the roadmap towards an IPR scheme also in Ghana. And it is really a critical policy tools that will foster and develop our activities and retain the value in the country.
Yeah, and that speaks to one thing that I also wanted to ask you next, which was on EPR and designing for environment. As in, looking at some of the things that you've brought out, you say you experience as recyclers and how you see new value creation can be done. How do you think producers can help with that? What kind of new approaches can producers such as the one that you mentioned, Jeffrey, take in what it's doing, whether it's producing new packaging, to ensure that whatever comes out from the consumer side and lands either in the landfill or with a recycler can not only be helpful to producing durable post-plastic waste that can be processed again and provide a high value product, but also reduce the amount of waste that's introduced into the environment?
So one radical thing would be to rethink the entire business and I guess move away from selling packaged products to customers and rather take a step back and thinking how bottled or bottled beverage companies could hydrate their customers. So a close friend of mine, they developed like a tablet, a flavored tablet that should encourage you to drink more because it's flavored. So probably most of us would prefer some lightly flavored water over just bland water, and that's kind of their approach they're taking. So imagine if Coke, for instance, would develop a Coke tablet and only sell the tablets rather than actually the packaged bottle. It would obviously allow Coke to transition away from a lot of packaging, but that would not work because Coke in itself is an ingredient supplier. So Coke delivers ingredients to their bottlers and the bottlers then fill their beverages and sell those. So the packaging is ingrained in Coke's business model, and it's going to be very difficult for them to transition away from using any kind of container. So the question is, how do you valorize the container? How do you keep it circulating in the longest possible way? One way they did it for ages, and that is also still very dominant in Africa, is the glass bottle. But obviously things are moving towards plastic more and more, towards PET. And I think the good thing that they're doing at least now is making the material more easily recyclable. So the Sprites, the green bottles of Sprite are turning into clear bottles, which enables recyclability. And they're also willing to incorporate recycled content in their packaging. So I think within the confines of a business model like Coke, I don't think they can completely avoid packaging, but they can design for recycling. So I think that's the most we can ask of from companies like those. And ideally for them to maximize the recycled content that they use in their packaging. And if we reach a place in which they can actually take a bottle and make it a fully circular product, I think that would be a great achievement already for a company like that, or for any company, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, maybe too. I mean, I agree with everything. And I think ultimately, it's the pyramid that everyone knows: reduce, reuse, recycle, and reduce is the best, reuse is the second, and recycle is already not the best solution, but then obviously a lot better than not recycling, right? And I think that kind of guides the whole conversation, as Jeffrey was saying. I think on the recycling side, and now kind of taking out the first two, which are indeed and would be the better solutions, again, echoing Jeffrey, like product design, and that generally means, more transparent packaging, more single one type of packaging, going to mono layers and not using different kinds of combined, multi-layer, multi-laminate packaging, and, being very clear and trying to have industry standards. So, like in PET, in a way that has naturally happened, almost all bottles are PET, but in many other types of packaging, the same container could be HDP or PP, or, some of the flexible packaging can have 3 kinds of plastics for the same product. So if there was a standardization for certain product types, and one type of product always use one type of plastic, and that would be a monolayer, that would already massively help on recycling. So I think things like that would be extremely helpful. Then again, companies trying to increase the recycled content in their packaging, because ultimately, there needs to be demand for the recycled pellets or flakes in order for people to sell them. So kind of voluntarily or involuntarily with government pressure, being, upping the percentage of recycled in packaging would really help. And I think some of that will lead to compromises on the packaging. It might not always be that colorful, but then again, if you tell the right story around it, I think that can be compensated for. And then I think lastly, coming back to Ghislaine's earlier point, I think taking up producer responsibility and paying a levy that goes towards recyclers and collectors to subsidize recycling, especially for harder to recycle and more difficult to recycling plastics, is really essential.
I'd like to bring the focus back to you and your startups. We're at the very beginning of 2022. I think this year has a lot of opportunities, just given some of the trends in terms of funding that's coming into Africa, but also the attention globally that's happening around sustainability, specifically around waste management. Could you tell us a little bit about your milestones for this year? What are some of the developments that you'd like to bring into your company, and how can the people joining us in this expo today join you on that journey?
Let's start with me. So yes, it has been a very exciting year, but we're starting these 2 coming years with the scaling up plan to reach the profitability, and to move the collection from 20 tons per month to 100 tons per month. And we will work on two axes. The first is the expansion of our collection networks. And the second one is to improve our recycling line by adding new equipment, because it will be very important to, as we mentioned, to improve the quality of the products made locally. If you have a constant volume, high quality flakes or pellet, that is very important for the development of a circular economy in the country. And with the perspective of the implementation of a bottle-to-bottle factory in Ghana, that is very important for us. So we are looking funds between 400 to 500K. And we already have secured 30% of this amount, thanks to a partner that will join us for the scaling up. But we are always looking for new partners to join on this venture and to work in Ghana, which is a very promising country.
Okay, great. So yeah, 2021 was actually an exciting year. It was also a year that we had to do a lot of learnings as well. And of course, moving towards 2022, most of it is going to be on scaling side. So, for example, with respect to working on community-wide recycling initiatives, we are looking at scaling to reach about 5 more communities in the Ashanti region, which is in Kumasi. And also, with respect to schools, educational activities, I think we've actually done a lot of great work in there. Our first environmental educational, waste educational handbook for school children is actually in the development phase. and somewhere around this year, we should probably be launching that as well. So you guys should be expecting that in 2022 as well. And then, of course, like I talked about with respect to the innovation and all those things, we are looking at building an innovation center that actually supports the research, design, and innovation into various ways that we could actually leverage our plastic waste. These are some of the few things that we are actually looking at. And of course, continuously, we are supporting startups that are actually in the areas of plastic waste management. So we become a smaller plug and play, and we keep on supporting them as well in that regard, especially on the ideation side, because that's one of the areas that is really bigger. And yeah, we are really open and looking forward to potential partners. So if those of you watching us, Recycle Up is arms wide open, and we are really hoping to get a lot of partners. Currently, we're currently looking at somewhere between 400 to 500,000 USD to be able to achieve all these things. Of course, we've set up some fundraising strategies, and we are already closer to achieving about 50% of it. But yes, we still want to work with other partners as well to help us achieve 100% and be able to set up all these goals. Talking about the Innovation Center, it's really a big thing, and we really want to see that happening this year as well.
It's going to be a big year for us. So it feels like everything is geared towards 2022 in our entire development. We're working together with Veolia for them to see if and how they can become longer term partners. So we're already partnered with them, but to see how I can take our partnership to the next level. So the first quarter is really going to be key. That's the time which they'll need to properly assess everything that's happened on the ground so far. And to decide whether or not we're going to start building the bottle-to-bottle recycling plant in Ghana. So that's definitely one of the biggest milestones for us this year. And then the second big one, both of them go kind of hand in hand, is that we can increase our throughput. So we've kind of plateaued around 400 tons a month. I would like to take that to 600 tons by the end of this year. So having Veolia on board on a longer term, breaking ground for a new factory, deciding how we're going to set up Veolia, our current investors, a German pension fund, and the team of founders, and how we can take this into the future, and then reaching higher throughputs. Those are our major goals for the year.
And of course, if anyone from Coca-Cola is joining us in the Expo today, please head over to Repattern's Expo booth. I'm sure you'll get a lot that could potentially influence how you rethink your packaging for the year 2022 if you speak to Jeffrey. Daniel, what's Takataka Solutions getting up to this year?
Also, it sounds like everyone has a busy year ahead. Same for us. So basically, I'm looking across the value chain. We're looking to double our buyback centers across Kenya to source more waste. We're also looking at actually buyback centers, both in Tanzania, to launch the buyback centers both in Tanzania and Uganda, with a view of launching recycling operations in 2023 in potentially at least one, if not both of the countries. So basically doing the preparatory work for that. Then we are, now that the recycling plants are running, we're trying to bring them up to capacity. So at the moment, we're between 100 and 150 tons a month with our first plant. We're looking to bring that to between 500 to 600 tons a month of processed materials by end of the year, which would be about 60% of our available capacity. So that's on the processing side. And then also we're looking to add additional fractions that previously we couldn't process. So we're looking to actually pelletize PET and multi-laminate packaging in country by Q3 of the year. So I think those are the plans. So quite a lot to do there. And then in terms of how we could potentially partner with some of the members of the Alliance, would obviously, as with everyone else, there's the element of funding, but beyond that, we are always interested to handle people's factory waste, because that's a source of materials and not just the plastics that we can handle. We're also interested in supplying to members or to their manufacturers of plastic packaging pallets, so that they can integrate our pallets back into their packaging. So I think that's something we'd be very keen to explore. Additionally, for those members that are interested in kind of getting towards plastic neutrality, we're also embarking on a journey of plastic credits next year, and we're also signing a major offtake agreement there. So if people are interested in, or companies are interested in purchasing or looking into plastic credits, I think that's something we'd also be excited to have a conversation about.
Fantastic. So please head over to Taka Solutions' Expo booth and chat to Daniel about the plastics credit program and maybe how you can be part of some of the developments. Looks like there's big things happening in East Africa for them. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us for this conversation today. It was really great to learn a bit more about the work that you're doing, but also to understand some of the challenges and barriers, but also some of the opportunities that you are identifying within the waste value chain. I think it's going to be a great year for African startups, especially the startups in sustainability. And I think this batch is going to be one part of that great wave of startups who really do big things this year. If you'd like to learn more about the batch, remember, you can always head over to Plug and Play's Expo booth. You can always also go and meet the founders via the networking tab. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
What a powerful conversation. Honestly, with impassioned and innovative founders like that, the plastics problem is one we can surely tackle in Africa. As highlighted by the previous panel, a vital part of our mission to end plastic waste is the educational component, which is required to deepen understanding of evolving dynamics such as legislation. So, here to briefly unpack for us what extended producer responsibility legislation is and its potential resultant implications, please welcome to the stage Dr. Guillermo J. Roman, who is a waste management and sustainability international practitioner currently with the United Nations Development Program. Thank you for joining us today, Guillermo. Now, to start off with, I'd like to hear from you as an expert in the space. What exactly is extended producer responsibility legislation, and how is this legislation going to help us address what a lot of people are already starting to coin as the plastic pandemic in Africa and other markets alike?
Hello, thank you, Bakan, for the invitation and to your organization, the Plug and Play. And yes, this EPR is, I would not say a recent trend, but it has already a couple of dozen of years that has been going on. And there exist many schemes worldwide. Here we have two of the basic or the what we would call the standard definitions of EPR, for one from OECD, where the basic is that the producer's responsibility goes beyond the product finish the useful life and it's still after the consumer stage. So the producer is responsible for this collection. This has been like applied in different degrees, different countries. Another of the definitions is the Basel Convention, where it is a very short producer responsibility is extended to the waste stage of that product life cycle. So with that in mind, we could see what the trend has been in the last years. In the last years, we could see almost say exponential growth of this. It grows almost parallel with the plastic production. That is interesting to notice because, of course, the plastic production and consumption has been exponentially in the highest degree. But fortunately, we have had this growth, and there we could see that 63 countries have mandates for single-use plastics, while 43 have some elements that are not specifically for single-use plastics, but for plastic bags in particular. So that would be my first comment on your question.
Fantastic. Thanks for highlighting that. So I think you've painted a little bit about, what the scope of extended producer responsibility is that in the fact that it extends all the way to waste produced by product and packaging and so forth. But could you share a little bit about who is actually considered a producer in the context of EPR, and what can producers look out for with respect to the application of this legislation?
Yes, that is a very important question, and it is maybe one of the most important sides to look at when you are developing a legislation or applying it, the definition of a producer. Because the producer, it could go back up to the resin, to the plastic resin producer, could be the first, like the first stage, or even the companies that finance the resin producers, but that is too high in the scale. So normally the producers are considered to be into groups. One are the producers of the items itself, the plastic bags itself, the bottles, the plastic bottles, or are the large users of the products that use those plastic packaging. So that could be like the food producers that need to package their products. So the producers are in those two sides, and also producers can be considered the large selling stores, the large selling commercializers. And in some countries, producers always are classified the importers. Importers of producers, the importers of products that are packaged in plastic.
Okay.
Of course, this last group is more difficult to differentiate because you would need to determine how much plastic is together with the product we are importing.
Given that we've defined, who the producers are and, the extent to which this regulation can apply to them, what are your thoughts around how producers can actually implement innovative practices and strategies in order to be able to either come up with new products that can help them to navigate the EPR legislation, or to stay relevant in a market that is really trying to shy away from the use of plastic-based goods and materials?
Yes, that is also, well, that is a part of the industry, I think, that may be more important for them. As far as I know, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste just released a few months back, I think it was last year, in the middle of last year or beginning, this paper on extended producer responsibility, and taking into account that it is a way to go. And the way to go, as they present it in that case, and I guess this meeting is related to, is that EPR has this influence up to the upstream side of the production, going up to, like in some of the Nordic countries, they have been modify the products that are being designed in order either to produce, of course, less waste, plastic waste, or that the plastic waste can be transformed or decomposed more easily, or even substituted by some other materials or some other uses, some other products. So those are the three types in which the EPR can have influence on the producers. The producers, I think they know that this has to be applied everywhere. I guess this is just a question of time. In my country, Mexico, we have had a law for waste for over 20 years, and there was no, and there is still no EPR in Mexico, while there are many other countries in Latin America that have it, like, well, Costa Rica and some others, Ecuador.
Yes.
And but in the end, it will come to be this way. I know, of course, that has to be the problem has to be addressed in the two ways: downstream for the collection, specifically the collection, Recycling for me, well, the chemical or the process, it is once you have put together the collection, it is the easy part to solve. But on the other hand, it is also very important on the design, at the design stage. Well, actually, I became involved with eco design some 20 years ago when it was being started in the Netherlands and in Sweden. And it is, of course, it is an excellent way to go. The eco design or the design for environment, the different names it has, it is very important. So this is a way when you have to design, there are many aspects that, of course, at this we will not be able to go in depth, but there are many aspects that would have to be considered, like the weight of the packaging, the weight, the size, the type, and the composition, for instance, in order for the designer of the product to go into.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So what I'm hearing there is that design and innovation are going to be absolutely critical, both when we're considering the collection process and aspect of it, as well as in how we actually make these materials from scratch that, you know, package our goods, services that we wear in our clothing. So we really need to start embracing the concepts of eco-design, as Guillermo has mentioned, and for any startups or potential startups in the audience as well, this is a great opportunity to get into the innovation of new materials and designs similar to the startups that we have on our program here. And so with that, Guillermo, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. I'm sure it is going to be the first of many as we see that exponential curve increasing in the years to come as more and more countries adopt extended producer responsibility. And I'm hoping that for everyone else in the audience, they've gotten just a little bit more insight around what this legislation actually means and how it affects them. And hopefully we'll see more people running to comply with the legislation. So thank you so much, Guillermo, and we hope to see you soon. Given the global EPR adoption trends shared, we hope that that conversation provided a sense of where waste legislation in this area is heading and painted a picture of the urgency for innovation by corporations, which can, of course, be leapfrogged by developing mutually beneficial partnerships with high-impact sustainability startups like those in our batch. If you are corporate keen to partner with us, the Alliance, or our startups on this mission, please feel free to reach out to us directly in the email addresses that we're dropping in the chat or via the exhibition booths on the event landing page. There you can also find information on the startups in our upcycling category who are unfortunately unable to make the event today.
Well, that's it for me in terms of the startup spotlights and the startup panels. I'd like to turn it over to our MC now, but if you'd like to get more information about our founders and their startups, you can head over to the Expo booth, which is located in the left-hand column on your screen. You can also connect with the Plug and Play team, our startups, and some of our founders via the networking tab as well. And you can meet other delegates who are attending this conference. I do hope you enjoyed the rest of our expo, and I hope to see you again next time. That's all for me.
And with that, it is with deep gratitude that we as Plug and Play Global Sustainability and the Alliance to End Plastic Waste extend appreciation to you all for gracing us with your audience today as we celebrated the first batch of startups from the Johannesburg hub of the End Plastic Waste Innovation Program. Whilst the formal agenda of the event has concluded, we invite and encourage you to stay for the open networking session that is beginning right now so that you can meet our startups, partners, teams, as well as other attendees. Thank you, and see you on the other side.